So, I just got done with the first episode of Undead Murder Farce, and I have to say, everything's pointing that this could be a really, really, really good show. And it really kind of comes down to presentation and the chemistry. Like, both of them are just absolutely perfect, and sort of gives me signs at what possibly this show is going to be about. Which makes perfect sense, because we have the director that did Kaguya-sama Love is War and Shogun Roku Raku Shinju. And my gosh, like, everything this director touches is gold. So it leads me to believe this show is going to be extremely good. But yeah, before I gush anymore, this is my first impressions of the first episode of Undead Girl Murder Farce, a series that is airing in the summer 2023 anime season, so let's jump right into it. Undead Girl Murder Farce opens up in the Meiji era. Now, this is not our Meiji era. This is like an alternate reality, alternate universe Meiji era. It states that under the flag of westernization, they want to kind of exterminate all supernatural, ayakashi, and trickster yokai. They call this the Great Purge. And we follow a guy that is named the Oni Slayer, and he pretty much just spends most of his time as a performer killing Oni that are brought to him at this little arena. It seems that the guy that he performs for pretty much brings him monsters, and that he is a part of the show because, as this guy claims, he is also a monster. Well, at some point, Sugaru, who is this Oni Slayer, notices that somebody's following around. He has a feeling of this presence. He keeps kind of looking back and looking for somebody. And at some point, he ends up catching this person, which ends up being Shizuku. And Shizuku is kind of dressed up as this maid, and he's kind of wondering, why do you follow me around? What do you want? And they get into a fight. Well, he ends up beating her, but then some voice calls out to him. And he really thinks that this person is doing some sort of ventriloquist kind of thing, because their mouth isn't moving, yet they're saying something. No, what ends up being the person that is talking to him is inside of this bird cage that Shizuku is carrying around. Yes, the head of Aya Rindo. This is this immortal that has apparently been beheaded. We find out that in this world, yes, there are people that are immortal, and they can't be killed. And he's like, well, why doesn't your body just grow back? Well, just so happens that if an Oni attacks somebody that is immortal, they can actually damage or kill them. But if somebody that is mixed blood with Oni attacks somebody that's immortal, they don't necessarily die. That's sort of what they're thinking happened to Aya Rindo. But Aya Rindo's not here to ask for this guy to give him her body back. She's actually here to have him kill her because, yes, he is part Oni. In exchange, she will prolong his life. As we find out that Sugaru, being partial Oni, the more he fights, the more the Oni side takes over him, and eventually it'll consume him and he'll just be killed. However, through conversation between Sugaru and Rindo, eventually he figures out that they have a sort of commonality. They both have a connection with a particular person, this foreigner that wields a cane. This is somebody that Rindo herself had noticed when her body was taken, and Sugaru remembers this person having been involved with him originally being captured. Thus, they both share one origin. And so Sugaru says, well, instead of me killing you, why don't I just get your body back? Why don't we travel together, find this guy, get your body back, and we'll both get the answers that we seek. Yes, technically he could just end her now, get his life extended, and that would be it. But this seems to be a better option in his eyes. So hearing this option, Rindo agrees, but also seals the deal by extending his life anyways. In order to do this, he has to consume something of her, which they end up deciding saliva, so they have to kiss. And that's basically the gist so far. A partial Oni teaming up with an immortal to go out to try to find this guy that's involved with sort of the issues that's caused them to be where they currently are. And yes, technically, Rindo getting her body back. So my thoughts on Undead Girl Murder Farce. I am absolutely loving this show so far. The presentation is absolutely fantastic. And like I said at the very beginning, that makes perfect sense because we have the director that did Kaguya-sama Love is War and Rakugo Shinju. Both of those shows have just amazing presentation, and it seems to be shining with this show as well. It seems as if this show is possibly going to be very, very dialogue heavy. And for that to actually work, especially for me in anyways, it has to have either really good chemistry or just visual spectacle to give you sort of symbolic visuals to match with what they're talking about. And we're getting both here. First off, presentation. Yes, having these long dialogue exchanges between the characters, talking about the current situation they're in. A good example, really, in this episode is specifically when Rindo asks him, why do you both want to die, but also want to live? You're fighting in these cage matches, and you know that's going to make you turn Oni, and they'll just kill you. Why are you doing that? Yet when my servant attacked you, you fought to survive. Don't you want to die? His response is that he knew that eventually he's going to turn to an Oni. So he tried to figure out what was the best option for that end. And he decided upon that he would fight in these cage matches until eventually he got consumed, and then he would attack all the people that were watching. His handler, the audience, everybody. All these lowlifes that have so much enjoyment out of watching these Onis being killed, it would be great to just rip through all of them. And then eventually the military would come by and they would finish me off. It would be an epic ending. Well, while he's talking about this, while this long dialogue about how he chooses to die is happening, you have all these visual effects that's happening that sort of shows you sort of the state of his mind and the impact on the characters and their feeling at the time. It's all beautifully shown. It's not just simply two characters standing next to each other and lips flapping. No, you're seeing his mindset. You're seeing how grandiose he feels about it. He's raising his hands up in the air like it's going to be an epic performance. All to talk about how he feels. And it's all sort of in his head. It's in the head of the characters. Because the entire time he's talking about this, he's actually crouched down, petting a dead cat. Feeling sorry for this cat that was probably beaten because everybody thought that it was an Oni. He doesn't like the people here. It's portraying physically why the people of this area are disgusting, and the idea that they were trying to kill this cat the previous day, and now it's dead. But additionally in his head, it's showing how much he hates everybody. The cheers and everybody as they're cheering on bloodshed. It's really fantastic. And they never keep it consistent. Every time it sort of portrays it in a different way. Like when Rendo is explaining how he's going to be consumed by the Oni, it's kind of done with like a black silhouette. It's really cool. Again, it adds a little bit of a visual flavor to it. Something to keep your eyes occupied while you're really kind of digesting all this information. And yes, the other part, like I mentioned earlier, that really sells this for me is the chemistry. I really like the chemistry so far between Rendo and Suguru. Yes, also Shizuku, but she's kind of just so far right now, just standing on the sidelines and listening to whatever Rendo says. She's her maid. But what makes Suguru and Rendo so great as chemistry so far is that they both sort of speak on a basis of knowledge. They're both confident about how they feel about the situation. They're both confident about their knowledge itself, but they never clash. And that's, yeah, some people could see that being kind of boring. You know, sometimes you like to have characters clash a lot. They were sort of clashing at the very beginning, and I'm sure they'll clash more in the future. But what I like about that is that I don't have to have that feeling of frustration over them talking over each other. They're both confident. They both know what they're talking about, and they speak very matter-of-factly. And why I think that's going to work so well is because what I'm already getting a feeling of right now with what the series is going to do is sort of possibly do a Monster of the Week kind of thing. They're going to have to do a lot of investigation. I'm sure they're going to run into many yokai and supernatural beings, and I'm sure they're going to probably have to figure this stuff out. And having the basis of knowledge that the two of them have, probably Suguru more in the side of Onis, while Rendo being more the side of immortality. She's technically been around for, I think, nearly 1,000 years. So she has a long history of knowledge. So I'm assuming she may have more knowledge and culture. But either way, like I said, just the way that they talk to each other, it seems like they're not really combative with each other. I think that's going to be a very refreshing chemistry for a series like this. I always have mixed feelings when it comes to Ayakashi yokai type of stories. For a while we were getting so much of it, but it felt very samey. The only ones really kind of breaking out of the norms and being something that always is consistently good is stuff like Natsume's Book of Friends. So I'm really, really hoping that this one works out. Plus, it really does feel like this one's going to get into a lot more other things, like based on the OP, werewolves and stuff. But yeah, very beautiful. Love the character chemistry so far. Great cast so far. Everything is just working so freaking well for this thing, and it just has me super excited for where it's going to go from here. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the first episode of this series. We'll see if it's got enough each episode that I might end up doing this as a weekly impressions video, but we'll see how it goes from here. But really great start so far. Cannot wait for more. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. Comment. Let me know what you're thinking of the series so far if you're going to be checking it out. Additionally, if you're new to this channel, make sure that subscribe button to get my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. I'll be doing first impressions of all the shows of the season. So if you're looking to get a quick way of digesting which ones to check out, this is the place to be. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, and membership button below. I greatly appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.